Truly, the real you loves you because the real you is love. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this session of Workbook Lessons from A Course in Miracles. And today we're going to be sharing from Workbook Lesson 134. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Again, my name is Oliver Blue, and I will be your temporary guide through this workbook lesson. And it gives me great pleasure to be here with you on this glorious day. And we take but another giant step up the ladder, the invisible ladder of awareness and consciousness, up the invisible ladder of reality, up the, I guess you might call it the timeless ladder, or the formless ladder of what we call reality. Because here we have come to understand that the foundation of this mind training, the foundation of this process of transformation or renewing of the mind, the whole foundation is based on what the Course sits at the very beginning, established at the very beginning, that there needs to be a understanding between that which is real and that which is not real. Without that foundation, without being able to discern the difference, to know the difference, then our starting point is a starting point of error. And so if we start in error, we end in error. And so we have to go back to where the original error was made. And the original error was made in eternity past, when some way, somehow, crept into the mind of God's creation this tiny mad idea of separation or unreality becoming reality. And it's from there that we have advanced and built and made a world and our entire thought system that is based on that belief in that tiny mad idea. And the Course says the Son of God forgot to laugh at the absolute impossibility of such an idea. But because we took it seriously, we took that seriousness and we created a world, or made a world. God in love is the only thing that creates. What makes is that which appears to be opposite of love and God. But we understand from these universal principles that there is no opposites in love, that there is no opposites in God. God is all there is. God is, and there is nothing else. So whether it be in the form of an idea, whether it be in the form of a thought that is antithetical or opposite to God or love, then that's the basis of saying that it's not real, meaning it's not eternal. It has its foundation in a belief in separation. And the Course also goes on to say that separation is the only thing that needs to be healed in order for the world to come and be the light that it is. In order for us to, you individually, me individually, to experience reality, we must heal the idea of separation in our minds, which is where it took place. And so the focus is on mind training, mind reversal. And so again, it's the foundation of that is that which is real. As the Course says, that which is real cannot be threatened, meaning it's changeless, it's eternal, it has no beginning and no end. It merely is. That is the truth. That is true always. And the truth about that reality is that we are part of that. That's the reality that we all share. And there are um, there are many synonymous descriptions or words that we use for that, like heaven or life. Life is synonymous with God and love. Heaven is synonymous with that reality. And so this morning, as we look again into the workbook lessons today, 134, we but again focus on one of the central themes, one of the most important themes in the Course in Miracles. What is a miracle? But a shift in our perception. It's when we recognize what is real has been seemingly replaced by that which is unreal. We shift our perception from the unreal back to the reality. We shift the way we perceive, the way we interpret, the way we understand. We shift our attention, our focus, our consciousness, our awareness back to the light, back to the truth. That is true always. And so, again, we turn to a central theme in that reality, because the Course tells us and teaches us that the way we execute that is through forgiveness. And so today we turn again to the theme of forgiveness. Why? Because we still, after 134 days, we are still not at a level of understanding forgiveness like we need to understand it if we are to have sustained peace in our life. Because it's through the function of forgiveness that we make the shift. It is through the function of forgiveness that we make the shift. And this is such an important theme. It's such an important place of understanding that we must have if we are going to sustain the peace, the love that we are, the peace that if we're going to have a sustained experience of peace, the direct experience of peace, we must be convinced. We must really deeply understand Jesus's brand of forgiveness, or the Course's brand of forgiveness. It is not the forgiveness concept or idea that we have been taught or that is demonstrated in the world. And so here we are again on day 134, reviewing this reality, this idea, because it's so important. In fact, the Course says forgiveness is the most heavenly tool on this side of, or in the illusion itself. It is forgiveness that allows us a portal and a way out of pain and suffering, a way out of deception and distortion. It is through forgiveness, and not just the basic idea or the world's concept of forgiveness, but it is through the Course's brand, through the brand that Jesus exercised and demonstrated in his life. When he said it is finished, Jesus demonstrated it in his life when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Jesus demonstrated it in his life when he met those that were laden with sin consciousness and guilt, those that had been judged by others. And he would always leave them with, "I forgive you," or "You are forgiven." And to the point that the religious people would say, "Who gives you the power to forgive? Only God can forgive." Well, Jesus understood that he was a representation of God, or that he and God was one, or that he and the Father was one, or that he had the mind of God, which gave him equality with God. To forgive not the way the world thought it, but to forgive in such a manner that it is totally foreign to our disposition. Because in the Jesus or the course brand of forgiveness, we realize that nothing has really happened. Versus in the world's brand of forgiveness, it's like a pardon. We say, yes, it happened. They're guilty, but we'll let them go. They're guilty, but we're going to let them go. That holds no water. That's not real forgiveness. That is not based on truth. That is based on an illusion that this world is real, that we can actually separate, that we can actually divide, that there is a such thing as sin, that sin is real. That's based on sin being real. That's based on there are acts that we can create that can separate, and it can't. That's based on a thought that we can change truth, that we don't remain as God created us, that what we do or say or feel or think can actually change the truth. And in reality, it can't. It only can give you an experience. It can only provide you with what the Course calls, a momentary belief that you have actually accomplished something by thinking contrary to the truth, by perceiving contrary to the truth, or acting contrary to the truth. All it produces what the Course calls a nightmare. All it produces self-suffering in the dream, but in reality, nothing has changed. Even your eternal self has not changed. Just your dreaming self has had a bad experience. And so here we are today at 134, back at this subject of forgiveness, because we need to understand it from the perspective of reality and from God's perspective. And so let me read the first little paragraph here. It says, let me. So the theme today, the idea today is let me allow myself, allow yourself to perceive. That word perceive, it says allow yourself to perceive, let me perceive. That word perceive means and it's gotten away from me because I had it here. I'll look it up again. The word perceive means to become aware or conscious of something. Let me become aware. Let me become a conscience. Let me become conscious. Let me come to realize, or let me come to know realization, or let me come to understand. To understand is to stand under another's point of view. In this case, we're going to stand under God's point of view and see as God sees, not as we have made, but as God sees. So the perception or to perceive is to stand under another's point of view, or another's awareness, or another's consciousness. It says to interpret or look on in a particular way. So we're going to interpret or look on in a particular way, through the lens, through the eyes, through the understanding of another. That other that we're understanding is from the eyes of truth, or from the eyes of God, or we're going to look from what it calls Christ vision or Christ consciousness. All these are synonymous terms. It doesn't matter what you call it. But the whole idea is there's a way of seeing that is full of light. There's a way of seeing that is full of love only. There's a way of seeing that is reality. That's the way we want to see. That's the way you want to see. That is the way. That's it. That is the only true vision that there is. We can make up other ways of seeing based on what? Illusions, based on what? False ideas, based on what we think, based on what we've been taught, based on what? How we've been conditioned. And it only brings us sadness. It doesn't get us to the truth. It doesn't get us to the light. It produces a world of illusions like we observe. It produces lack and poverty and sickness and death and fear and anguish and suffering and all the ugliness that we see, that we observe in the world, all the ugliness, all the division, all the strife, all the hatred and the vitriol, all of the things that we look upon and say that is so not love. All the judgments. And so there's a way of seeing. And this course is about what? Us learning what? A way of seeing, a way of knowing, a way of perceiving that brings us into a direct experience of our true reality. That's what we want. That's what we all desire. And so, let me go a little lower with that. And so here we are. So let me perceive forgiveness. Let me understand it. Let me see it through God's eye, God's point of view. Let me really understand let me really understand what forgiveness is. It says, let me perceive forgiveness as it is, not as we have made it, not as we have observed it, not as we have demonstrated it, but let me, allow me, or I'll allow myself. That's what this lesson is about, is allowing yourself to understand so that you can what? Walk in forgiveness as it really is and not as it has been presented to us from an ego's point of view. It is so important. It's your only portal out of the illusion. It is through forgiveness, true forgiveness. What we're talking about is true or real forgiveness. It's so vital. It is so vital to your happiness. It is so vital to your sustained peace. It is so vital to your well-being in every aspect, that we grasp this reality, that we grasp this, the role and the function of forgiveness in our life. You can't get to reality without it. And even forgiveness in and of itself is only needed in a dream of separation, because in heaven, where nothing has changed, there's nothing to forgive. And so we take that whole same concept. As Jesus said, let it be on earth as it is in heaven. So in heaven, there's nothing to forgive. So Jesus said, let it be like that on earth. There's nothing to forgive. Why? This life is only a dream. This life of separation, this body identification life is only a dream. It's not eternal. It's not. It has a beginning and an end. So in reality, it's not reality. So there's really nothing to forgive. Like the second line in the introductory of the course says, nothing unreal exists. So it really has no eternal existence. So it has no eternal impact. So in reality, the experience we have here it doesn't even really ultimately need forgiving. Why? Because it's only a temporary. It's only a temporary experience. So whatever happens in the dream, in reality, whatever happened in your life or anyone's life for that matter, ultimately, it needs no forgiveness. And I know that's a huge apple to swallow. But remember, a mind that is split doesn't make the law, doesn't make the rules, doesn't establish what reality is. Reality is already established. And so when we look at this from a mind that believes that it is split or separate, it can do nothing but error until it what? Until it in and of itself is no longer given credence. Until we turn away from that and turn to the light only, can we realize and understand what reality is. And so with that said, it says, let us review the meaning of forgive. So today is a review on the meaning of forgive. What does it mean? What purpose does it serve? How important is it? For it is apt to be distorted. It is apt. So our normal or natural propensity is to distort the meaning of forgiveness and to be perceived as something that entails an unfair sacrifice of righteous wrath. In other words, the idea of forgiveness or to forgive is the idea that something has occurred and that punishment is due. That's the basic idea of what we would naturally think of forgiveness in this world. And it's what the world teaches. An unfair sacrifice of righteous wrath, or they call it pardon. Okay? When we pardon someone in this world, that means that they were guilty, but we let them go. Okay, so guilt is involved. So we know that if guilt is involved, that this is not a God idea, because from a God perspective, there is no guilt. There's nothing to be guilty about. All is well. And so it says a gift unjustified. So our natural propensity towards the concept of forgiveness is that is what? It is a gift that is unjustified based on an act. And it said, and undeserved. It's a gift that's unjustified and undeserved. So in other words, it's based on something that actually occurred, that a sin occurred, and the person is justified in their wrath. They're justified in punishment, and they deserve punishment. That's the whole concept. That something went wrong, and it deserved punishment, and it deserved what? It deserved unjustification. And see, that whole concept has been taught to us through many religious platforms, where that man sinned, and so the punishment for sin is death. That concept is taught strongly in a lot of traditional religion, that the soul that sinneth shall die, or the wages of sin is death. Okay, so we've been taught this as though sin is real. Okay, but we've already taught about, from a course perspective, that sin is not real because it's not eternal. Because it's not eternal. And it only happens in dreams of separation. So we have to make the distinction between what is real and what is not. Okay? So the content of our dream life is not real. It's not eternal. It has a birth and a death. a beginning and an end. And it's based on what? A false perception of ourselves. Okay, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here now. Come on, let's do it. Let's understand this thing to the point that, okay, now I see. I was blind, but now I see. I was lost, but now I'm found. And it has to come through the knowing. Grace and peace is multiplied to us through the knowledge. We have to have accurate knowledge. And the accurate knowledge comes directly from God. It's called revelation, the revealing of the truth. Paul talked about it in all his writing, that it came to him through revelation knowledge, through the revelation of Jesus Christ, of what Jesus Christ meant, through the revelation of the truth that he stood for and represented and demonstrated. That's why it's important. That's why I look at the life. I look at the life that Jesus demonstrated. And that's my example. All the other stuff that we, have taken and created a institution called church and made it the truth. That's where you can get really thrown off. But you look at his life, look at what he demonstrated, look how about what he thought about himself and what he thought about others. That is the example. That is the mind that was in him, that was in God. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know. And so it says that we're apt to be distorted. We are apt to distort the true idea of forgiveness, and see it as something that is unfair, as an unfair sacrifice of righteous wrath, a gift unjustified, undeserved, and a complete denial of the truth. In such a view, forgiveness must be seen as mere eccentric folly. In such a point of view, forgiveness, here it's saying that forgiveness is laughable. It says, and this course appear to wrest salvation on a whim. How can you let the guilty go free? In other words, how can you say that what they did, they didn't do? How can you say that you can look past the act? How can you say it is justified? How can you say that it is deserved, that everyone is deserved to be forgiven? How can you say that? He says, so from this point of view, it looks like forgiveness is merely a folly, a laughable idea. And this course appears to rest its entire premise on this whim. And that's why we say we have to understand the course's idea of forgiveness. We have to understand Jesus's brand of forgiveness, because it comes nowhere in equality with the idea of the world. And so you remember there's a section in the course called What is Forgiveness? Okay, I'll turn there. Back on page 401. We're still in the workbook for students. And I'm just going to read a few points here. Because again, you have to understand this brand of forgiveness. If you're going to walk in the liberty for yourself, as well as release the world and all it made. Release yourself and all that you've made. If you're really going to forgive the dream and the dreamer, you have to understand this brand of forgiveness. It said forgiveness recognizes, okay? Forgiveness is a recognition, okay? It recognizes something. It recognizes that what you thought your brother did in terms of an act, in terms of an act, it says, what you thought your brother did, to you, it has not occurred. So here it acknowledges that the life of a person that is dreaming of separation, in the world of attack, in the world of hate, in the world of, birth and death, in the world of perception. What it's saying here is, in that experience that we have as human beings, that is not the real world. It's an illusionary experience that we're having based on the split mind. It's only a temporary experience. What the Course is saying here is that that world is not real. So if it's not real, there's nothing to forgive. So when we have experience in that world of being unfairly treated, when we have experience in that world where it appears that others are attacking us or others are doing us wrong, the Course is saying that that is not the real world. It's a dream world. And when we come to understand that, then we come to understand that all the content of that world, all the content of that experience, is only a temporary idea, illusion. And why do you need to forgive an illusion? So he's saying that what you thought your brother did to you, it has not occurred. Because in reality, it has not occurred in reality. It only has occurred in dreams and in vain imaginings and hallucinations. Oh, even though it feels real, it looks real, it sounds real, but it's not real. It doesn't pass the real test. And so if it doesn't pass the real test, it doesn't exist. That which is unreal does not exist. You gotta embrace this reality if you're going to eventually find a peace of God. If you make the unreal real, there is no peace in that. If you make this world we made real, there is no peace in that. There is no peace in a world that was made on separation. So it said it has not occurred. See, this is the foundation for true forgiveness. That in true forgiveness, there's a recognition that what we thought happened to us has not occurred. It has not occurred. It does not pardon sins. True forgiveness doesn't pardon sins and make them real, because sin is not real. That concept that we made of sin is not real. It says, it sees there was no sin. True forgiveness recognizes there was no sin. There was a dream of separation. And in that dream, there appeared that we were unfairly treated. It seems so real. Like when you go to bed at night and you dream, it seems so real. Last night, I went to bed and I dreamed. And I dreamed of my daughter's dog. That he ran away and got lost in the city where there's all these other vicious dogs. And my daughter's grand dog, Kona, he only weighs 2.5 pounds because he's just a Yorkie Terrier. And the little Yorkies, the little 2.5 pounders, they have no fear at all of other dogs. And so he ran away in the city with all these loose, vicious dogs, and I couldn't find him. I went all over the place looking for him. And it seemed real when I was dreaming it. But when I woke up and realized I was dreaming, guess what? I was not sad anymore because I knew that Kona was safe at home with my daughter. It would be ludicrous for me to still walk around sad as though it was real, when I know it wasn't real, that Kona is safe. Likewise, in our life, as we move on this level, this dreamlike level, of a body identification, where there's these separate bodies in this world that we've created, and all the things that happen in this world. And in the dream of separation, we get attacked by others, or we get mistreated by others. And it seems so real. Our feelings, our emotions are involved. We hurt our image. We feel like we've been damaged. And we think it's real, and it feels real. Only till we wake up to the reality that what? It's not the reality. This is just a temporary experience that we're having through our choices. And in those choices and those experiences, and we're dealing with other people, people attack us, people treat us wrong, and always, But when we wake up within that dream and realize it's only a dream, we're able to discern. We're able to let it all go. We're not sad anymore. Same way if you go to a movie and you're watching the movie, you're in the theater watching the movie, and you allow your emotions and your psychological self to get all involved in the movie, and you feel the hurt and the pain or the joy and the happiness, and you're all into the movie, and you feeling the plots and the schemes. But once the movie is over, what do? You get up out of your seat, you walk out. You don't walk out believing that the movie is what you're walking out into. No, it was a movie. It was not real. It was just entertainment. So the belief in separation is like, it's just entertainment. It's fiction. And so when we realize this, when we recognize that what we thought was happening didn't really happen, it has not occurred. That's what we're talking about. Regardless of how painful we thought it was, regardless of how much we thought we've been victimized, regardless of how much we think that the one that victimized us needs to be punished. When we wake up to the reality that it is not the real deal, we laugh because it's kind of comical or funny. It says, and we realize that it's not eternal. That's what sin is based on. The concept of sin is based on, it's eternal, and it deserves eternal punishment. And so we are all conditioned in this body identification that humanity sinned, and we all needed to be punished, and punishment of death, eternal death. That's the whole concept. That's the ego's concept of sin based on separation. And it's in most traditional religions as though it makes it, makes it real. But it still doesn't make it real, regardless of where that idea may be coming from. The truth is, sin is not real. The idea of it is not real. We made that up. That's a man-made idea. It's not a God idea. Just like this world is not a God idea. We made this world up based on separation. And so it says, and in the view are all your sins, and in that view are all your sins forgiven. Because there are none. When there are none, they're all forgiven. It says, what is sin except a false idea about God's creation? What is sin but a false idea about you and your identification in me? It's a false idea. It's not a real idea. It's a false idea based on separation. That's what sin is. So it's based on a lie. And so forgiveness merely sees the falsity of the idea. Forgiveness sees that it's not real. So when we look through forgiving eyes, we're looking through eyes that have identified or recognized that what we thought occurred didn't occur. It says forgiveness merely sees its falsity, and therefore what? Let it go. Why would you hang on to a false idea? Why would one hang on to that which causes suffering? That which causes pain and suffering, that which causes anguish. Why would you hold on to anxiety and fear and trepidation? Why would you hang on to an idea that only bring about that which you do not desire? Why would you put in between you and the reality that you are an illusion? Why would you put it there? Why would you cover up reality with unreality? Why would you hold on to resentments, grievances that are not real? Why would you blame others for your belief in separation? Why would you do it to yourself? Why would I do it to myself? It's insane to do that. If we knew what we was doing to ourselves, we would stop it immediately. We would let it go. Those that are holding on to grievances, those that are holding on to resentments in their life. If you're listening to me, if you're holding on grievances and resentment, if you are blaming others for your hurt and your pain, you are holding on to an illusion, and you are self-sabotaging your peace. You are punishing yourself. You are doing it to yourself. Let it go. It's not real. It's not from a real point of view. It's from a distorted point of view. Let it go. Your peace depends upon it. Your freedom depends upon you letting go every hurt and every pain and every unfair treatment that you are holding someone else responsible for. Let it go. It's not real. Let it go. It says, what then is free to take the place is now the will of God. When we let it go, what's free to take its place is the very will of our Creator, the will of God for you to experience. We can experience the will of God when we are holding on to grievances, when we are holding on to resentments, when we're blaming others for our lack of happiness, our lack of peace, when we're blaming others for our state of mind. No one is responsible for your state of mind but you. So this is why it's so important that we understand what true forgiveness is. Without that understanding, without that portal for us to walk through, to walk away from the illusion, to walk to the light. We cannot even walk to the light without this understanding. We can't come to heaven's gate, as the Course used as a metaphor, without the reality of forgiveness and the role that it plays to bring us, to walk us out of the dream, to wake us up from separation. It says forgiveness, on the other hand, is still, when we understand this, it says forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. Why? Because you realize there's nothing to do. There's no need to retaliate. There's no need to hold on to grievances or resentments. There's no need to uh, explain. There's no need to desire anything from anyone when you really understand this. But it is still and quietly does nothing. When you realize that nothing has occurred, then you are still and you quietly do nothing. You don't retaliate. You don't attack back. You don't retain unloving thoughts. You let it all go. I mean, completely go. You don't require anything of the other person. You don't even require anything of yourself. You just merely let it go. Because you realize that what you thought your brother did has not occurred. There's no need to pardon. There's no sin. There's no guilt. There's no judgment. But if we hold on to it, all we can do is judge. All we can do is have a perception of another, of punishment. And that which we hold of another, we're holding of ourselves, because we don't remember now, we're one. In reality, we may not know that. When we don't know that, that's why we will make the difference. That's why we'll pay repentance. I mean, that's why we will make another person feel like they have to pay. Or that we have to take advantage, or we now in the advantage because they did us wrong. So they owe us something. No, that's all based on the belief in separation, and it never works. It never resolves anything. It only brings more pain and suffering to you. It only gives you this sense of victim mentality, which is not a real solution. You never resolve anything with a victim mentality. You're not a victim of the world you see. You're not a victim of someone else's unloving thoughts or acts, because you understand that you're who you are. You understand that you're invulnerable, that you're impregnable, that you need no defense. You are the truth, the way, and the life. You need no defense in your true reality self. And so it says, forgiveness, on the other hand, is still and quietly, and it does nothing. It offends no aspect of reality. It doesn't go on the offense. It embraces reality. To do nothing is to embrace reality. To be sit still and quiet and not retaliate. It's because you have embraced reality. And it doesn't seek to twist it to appearances that it likes. In other words, it doesn't try to save face. So you don't go back and behind people's back and talk about what they did to you and how bad they treated you and talk to others about it. You say, I forgive them, but da 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 da. They did da 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 da. That means you haven't embraced. You're trying to twist reality. To appearances that you like. But when you understand the truth, there's no twisting involved. You just are still, and you quietly do nothing. As I sit here and even talk about this, I see where I can practice this, and I need to practice this. regardless of what appears to happen. We need to practice this, where it appears that we're unfairly treated, and we try to twist the appearances that we're victims. But we say that's forgiveness, and that's not forgiveness. And so it offends no aspect of reality, nor seeks to twist it to appearances it like. But what forgiveness does, in reality, true forgiveness, the Jesus brand of forgiveness, the Course's brand of forgiveness, it says it merely looks. Okay, it looks, it observes. It looks and it waits. Well, notice now, it looks but takes no action. And it waits. Listen, this is the practice of true forgiveness. It merely looks and waits. So there's a pause. That's why this practice of the pause is so important in our life. And we've been highly trained in to respond to what happens in our life, to respond to people, to respond to situations, circumstances, and conditions, to respond to things, to add our opinion, our point of view to it. But it says true forgiveness, it merely looks and waits and judges not. It renders no judgment, or it renders no it doesn't make what appear to happen to be real. It doesn't judge what seemed to have occurred, but it has not occurred. It judges not. In other words, it doesn't judge the situation based on what? Separation. But it is aware. It is aware. It recognizes. It recognizes what is real and what is not. And it responds to reality. Notice now, it responds. In other words, it's responsible. It takes responsibility for reality and doesn't react to unreality. That's maturity. That's the way we want to be. That's the life we want to live. That's the way we want to show up as mature, Christ-conscious people. When we get to the point where we merely look and wait and judge us not. It says, he who would truly forgive, or he who would not forgive. I'll put it to you that way. It says that he who would not forgive must judge. He who would not let go. He who would choose to hold a grievance. He who choose to be a victim. He that would choose to hold a resentment must judge. You must do it. We see it in the world all the time. But the world is full of judgment. Jesus told us, he said, what? Judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because with the same criteria you use to judge is going to be used against you. And we don't like when we're judged with the same criteria. Why? Because the same criteria means what? When you're judged by illusions, you're not going to like it. Just like when other people are judged, you judge other people by their illusion. They don't like it. You won't like it either. Okay? See what's going on here? He said, but merely look and wait and judge not. He who would not forgive must judge, for he must justify his failure to forgive. And we justify our failure to let it go through judgment. That's how we justify it, through our judgment. But he who would forgive, to give up the perception of illusion, who will give up the perception of separation, he who would give that up for another perception or a true perception, he who would give that up for reality, he who would give up unreality for reality. He who would merely be still and quiet and do nothing. He who would merely look and wait and judge not. He who would forgive himself. Notice now, forgive himself. It has nothing to do with what someone else done. He said, no, forgive yourself. He that would forgive himself, or give himself over to reality, must learn to welcome truth exactly as it is. How is it? All is one. How is truth? Truth has not been changed. Reality has not changed. God has not changed. I have not changed. I remain as God created me. Oneness remain intact. Not a song, not a note in heaven have been lost. That is what it means when it says what? Learn to welcome truth exactly as it is. So we're not given over to the illusion. We're not given over to the dream or the hallucination. We're not given over to the vain imaginings. But we, in the moment, embrace the reality, that reality remains intact. And therefore I remain intact. Therefore my brother remains intact. So I forgive myself. I forgive my brother. I forgive the world. That's what it means to forgive the false idea of a world of separation. I don't know any other way to say this. It says it all right here. He would forgive himself, must learn to welcome truth. So today we welcome the truth, that the truth remain as it always has been. Our true identity, our relationship with our Creator, our relationship with each other. Oneness is as it always has been. Nothing has changed. Even in a world that appears to be on the road, on a hellish road of consuming itself. And that's exactly what's happening, because the ego in and of itself, its time is marked. It comes to an end. All of this madness comes to an end eventually. Time is what? Swallowed up by timelessness. Form is what? Swallowed up by formlessness. And thus we remain. And when you but recognize, when I but recognize this, this brand of forgiveness, not as the world has taught us, not as religion has taught us, not as the systems of the world continue to demonstrate through punishment and judgment. When we recognize this, we begin to experience the peace of God that passes all understanding. Grace and peace has been multiplied unto us through the knowledge, through the knowing of ourselves, the knowing of reality, the knowing of our Creator, the knowing of our brother, that we all share the same life, the same love. Well, it appears, because it's already 1 hour, that I'm going to have to do part 2 to this workbook lesson 134. It's just because this subject is so vital, so rich. We have to understand it. So instead of making a 2-hour commentary here, I am going to cut it here and come with part 2. So thank you so much. We'll continue workbook lesson 134. Let me perceive forgiveness as it really is. I just explained forgiveness as it really is. We need to meditate on that. We need to sit with that. Therein lies our peace. Therein lies our understanding. Thank you so much. Until the next session here, I bid you a good day. And we'll see you part 2, workbook lesson 134. Forgiveness. Think about it. Selah.